Hello, hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. Here we're at our third of the SoundMind Summer series on psychedelics. And Grace, good to see you. So if anyone wants to turn on the camera, you are welcome to. We have this as a classroom style, and it is recorded as well. So if you do turn on your camera, you might be on camera for other people watching a recording. But really wanting to have this be interactive, answer questions that folks have about any of the topics we're going over, and also just help you get to know SoundMind a little bit and how we talk about things, how we do things, if you're interested in learning more. So I will go around and have people just introduce themselves who are on this panel. So I'm Dr. Hannah McLean-Litt, and I am the founder and director of SoundMind. We have been running our training program since 2019. And really excited to be part of some of the state level initiatives that are going on. So today we'll talk about Colorado, New Mexico, also just in general, what you can do with a facilitator license, and answer questions around that. And I'll talk more about my bio later at the end of the presentation. Cool. Who wants to go next? Diana, do you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Diana. I am Costa Rican. I live in Costa Rica, and I've been working with SoundMind for a few years. Super excited to be here, and I always say this because it's true. This is the work of our heart. So yeah, super happy to be here.
Thank you. Tasha.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Hannah and the SoundMind team for having me on. My name is Tasia Poinsatte. I am the director in Colorado of a nonprofit called Healing Advocacy Fund. And our mission as an organization is basically to support the success and viability of these state-regulated models for psychedelic healing with a focus on safety, affordability, and access. So we've been very involved in helping set up the regulated structure in Colorado, which is what I'm going to focus on today.
Thank you. Awesome. Denali.
Hi, everyone. My name is Denali. I am like Tasha, I work at the Healing Advocacy Fund based in New Mexico. So I'm here, the Director of Strategic Support for the state, and excited to share updates about our new program and how facilitators and prospective facilitators could be engaged.
Thank you. Jake and Patrick.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jake. I'm Patrick. And we are graduates of class of 2024. And we're really excited to be here to help provide some updates in terms of the things that we've been able to do with this beautiful education.
Thank you. Thank you. Grace, do you want to introduce yourself? Oh, you got it.
Am I there? Sorry, I've lost you.
You're
Hang
there.
on. Give me 2 seconds. There you are. Sorry, clicking too many buttons. Hi, everybody. I'm Grace from New Zealand. Lots of familiar faces on the call, which is always a delight. I am a very relieved graduate of 2025 and just have awe and respect for what SoundMind are doing. Yay! And I am actively down in this corner of the world trying to secure licensure for psilocybin, which is we've got 1 clinic approved, and I'm currently writing open letters and reaching out to politicians and generally just kind of agitating in a constructive way to get things moving down here.
Awesome. Do it.
Yay!
Change the world. Sweet. Thank you. So we're going to go through, Tasha will talk to us a little bit about Colorado, and then we'll talk a little bit about New Mexico. We'll hear from Jake and Patrick. And then around the hour mark, we'll talk a little bit about SoundMind, and happy to answer any questions. We do have the chat open if anyone has questions that come up as we're speaking around anything to do with the topic. We are welcoming whatever questions come up. So I will hand it over to Tasha.
Sounds good. Thanks, Hannah.
Thank you.
So I do have a few slides prepared to just help me stay kind of focused. Is that coming through all right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep,
we can
great.
see it.
Awesome. Okay. So I might move through some of these kind of quickly, and then we can just save time for in the Q&A if people want to dive in on anything more deeply. I'm trying to get it to progress, and it's not wanting to. There we go. Okay. So here's our mission at Healing Advocacy Fund, just focusing on expanding and protecting affordable access to psychedelic healing. And currently we're working across Oregon, Colorado, and most recently New Mexico, with Denali joining our team, which is very exciting, and really helping communication occur across the states and just trying to improve these state regulated programs as they roll out. And so, yeah, we have teams across these three states, which is super helpful. Basic high level of Colorado's program is that there's the regulated access model to work with psilocybin. There's also the potential for the state to add 3 other plant-based psychedelics, but that's not going to be decided until a little bit down the line. So for the focus, that state regulated model is just psilocybin. And then we've also decriminalized the personal use and sharing of the 3 plant-based psychedelics as well as mushrooms. And then there's also provisions in the law that protect licensed professionals to participate in the state regulated psilocybin program. And an important thing to note is that it is not a dispensary or retail model. So I'm always going through this licensed therapeutic framework. And super high level, the requirement for access is that clients reach out, they do a safety assessment, they participate in preparation, they have supervision during their experience, and then they do at least 1 integration session after the administration session. In terms of the license types in Colorado, the state is going to be licensing 4 different types of businesses. So healing centers where the sessions with psilocybin take place, licensed cultivators, manufacturers, and then testing labs. And we do have all of these licensed and operational as of now. And then a different agency is licensing facilitators as well as training programs like SoundMind to be able to get people trained and prepared to facilitate with psilocybin. And then a high level, when we think about the structure of both Colorado and Oregon's program, there's several components that are really geared towards safety. So of course, those training requirements, requirements for screening and fit matching to the right facilitator, working with regulated and tested medicine, and then a bunch of pieces around just transparency and information that the client's receiving so that they know the basics of the care they're getting and who they're receiving care from, and they can also follow up if there are any issues. And then as of now, there are also data reporting and outcome measurement requirements in Colorado, as well as Oregon. So that's an exciting thing about the state programs is that we're really starting to get more information about both safety, but also impact of working with psilocybin in these regulated settings. On the access side, I always like to highlight that it's not a prescription model in Colorado or in Oregon. There's no qualifying condition to work with psilocybin as long as you're 21 and up. And in both states, we're just talking about cultivated mushrooms and extracts, so no synthetic versions of psilocybin. Clinical licensure is not required to be a facilitator, though it is an option. And then to support access, group sessions are allowed with a ratio of up to 4 participants to a facilitator. And then remote preparation and integration are also allowed. We also have 2 facilitator license types in Colorado: clinical facilitator, somebody who is licensed to diagnose and treat mental health and medical conditions, and that license does need to be active in the state of Colorado for them to be clinical. And then a regular facilitator, which doesn't have that clinical license, may still hold another license like nursing, acupuncture, some of these other wellness or healthcare fields. One piece about Colorado's program that's pretty different from Oregon's is our required screening process. And so Oregon has a few, 3 actually, exclusion criteria, where if a facilitator, for instance, or sorry, if a client has a diagnosis of psychosis, they can't participate in a psilocybin session. Colorado opted to not go with specific exclusion criteria, but there's a requirement that all clients complete a state mandated screening form that is designed to identify potential health and mental health factors that could increase their risk to taking psilocybin. And then if that screening flags one of those factors, depending on the skill and background of the facilitator, they may need to complete an additional consultation and risk review with a licensed healthcare provider. So this chart sort of outlines the basics of that, but I can get more into it if people have more questions about screening. And then in terms of the healing centers themselves, there's a fair amount of flexibility. As I mentioned, individual or group sessions, indoor or outdoor spaces. These can really be kind of set up according to the design preferences of the healing center. And then they can also be co-located with existing businesses. So a lot of healing centers in Colorado are, for instance, located at a therapy office or even a yoga studio or things along those lines, so that psilocybin sessions can occur there, but it may not be the main use for that space. And then we do also have 2 designations of healing center. We have standard healing centers and a micro healing center. And the micro healing center basically is just less expensive to get licensed. It doesn't have as challenging of security requirements for the storage of the psilocybin itself. And the only requirement to be a micro healing center is just that you're storing below a certain threshold of psilocybin, with the thought being like there's less sort of impetus for somebody to break in and steal the mushrooms. I don't know that there's a lot of impetus regardless, but that was sort of the compromise we found during the rulemaking process to keep some of the costs down for those micro centers. So as of right now, we have 14 licensed healing centers across Colorado. And this map shows both where we have approved healing centers and then applications. And so including the pending applications, we've got around 30, or we could have up to 30 by the time those are all approved. And they really are kind of across the state, of course, a focus on our Front Range corridor, which is where the largest population density of the state is, Denver Metro and surrounding. But we do have a few coming up on the western slope of Colorado, which is exciting. And then one down in West Cliff, which is set up more, I believe, as a kind of retreat setting, which is, you know, I'm excited to learn more about that one, but a little bit more out in nature as well. And, you know, we'll see. I know there's plans for quite a few more. It is taking people more time to go the route of the retreat center model, mostly because of the challenges around like the local zoning requirements. But I know that there are several people looking to set those up to make sure that people have access in more natural settings as well, so not just all in cities. And then one thing I always like to kind of highlight about the state regulated programs, they're a really great opportunity for research and deepening our understanding of psilocybin therapy as a modality of care. So on the right here, you can just see an example of one study that happened in Oregon's program looking at women with fibromyalgia. But there's all kinds of conditions where there really has not been a lot of clinical research, but we have enough anecdotal evidence to suggest that there could be real benefit for folks. And the state models offer an opportunity to explore that in a much less expensive way than the clinical research, with a greater diversity of participants, working with mushrooms rather than synthesized psilocybin. And then, you know, it's important to note that this isn't a replacement for clinical research because there's not really a control group. It's more kind of in the observational research realm, but it can be really supplemental and provide a lot of insight to then guide future clinical research. And it's also a way that we can compare psilocybin therapy with other standards of care and begin to demonstrate that this can be safe and effective for hard to treat conditions. So one example of this is that the Healing Advocacy Fund has just completed our first observational research study working with people with alcohol use challenges in Oregon. And we're now looking at analyzing that and sharing out the results. So we don't have the data yet from it, but we do have really compelling testimony from the facilitators of the power of these experiences and just kind of hearing back from, you know, word of mouth from some of the participants in that study that it has been really transformational for them and they have been able to greatly reduce their alcohol use or in some cases even stop using. And so I'm really excited to see the results of that. And then we're looking into other areas that we can continue to support these kind of research projects. And then sort of supplementing that, so there's like the organized research studies, and then Colorado also recently passed a bill in the last session that creates a state database where they're going to be collecting de-identified information about the provision of services, as well as the de-identified demographics of the participants, the clients, safety, how many adverse events are we seeing, and importantly, what kind of outcomes are we seeing, which is really exciting because this is being taken on by the Department of Public Health and Environment. And it is pretty unprecedented for this Department of Public Health to be willing and actually excited to look at the positive impacts of something. They're usually more set up to look at like the safety and the harms. And they're like, no, we don't care about the good stuff. And we've gotten them to be like, okay, we do care about the good stuff. We should understand how people are benefiting as we move forward and build this out. And it's again going to really supplement our understanding as well of like how we really design these care models carefully to support different populations, people with different conditions, and just deepen our understanding of the safety profile. So even understanding things like medications and interactions potentially depending on how this is set up. And rulemaking is still pending for that. There's definitely going to be a big emphasis on ensuring that the privacy of the clients is protected, and that this is all de-identified information, so not revealing anyone's protected health information. And that rulemaking is going to be taking place over the next probably year or so to get this up and running. If you're interested to dig in more into the state programs, definitely recommend you go to the state agency websites, and they have a lot of resources there and information about the programs. It can be a little bit confusing to navigate, but I think especially if you're thinking of getting licensed, it's worth taking the time to just sort of dig in and start to get a better sense of how they're setting up the structure. And then you can also search for the licenses. So if you want to look at those applications for healing centers, for instance, and see where they are around the state, you can do that. And then lastly, with HAF, we also have a number of educational resources. We have created a licensed healing center directory, so you can see all 14 licensed healing centers listed there with contact information and websites. Some of that's still in process for them. They're very early days, but we're going to keep, giving folks the chance to opt into that as more centers get licensed. We also have a newsletter where we share out monthly updates on the state programs and kind of broader movements in the state regulated space for psychedelics. We have two short client films, which are documentary style films following some of the first clients to go through Oregon's program and really capture what this process looks and feels like from the perspective of real people's experiences. So I think those are a really great resource for anyone trying to just deepen and share understanding of what this is and why it can be so beneficial, kind of show rather than tell concept. And then we have some, informational one-pagers about the program if you're ever interested in educating folks in your network. And then finally, we're finalizing just this week a client education guide, which provides a lot of information that's client-facing in sort of plain English as much as possible, not like psychedelic speak, for people who don't have a lot of experience with psilocybin therapy, to understand how they can approach this, what are the safeguards in place, what are the different types of mental health and medical concerns that they could consider when deciding if psilocybin is the right fit for them. So that will be released sometime in the next week. And if you've signed up for a newsletter, you will get it. So that is all I've got for you guys today. And I'll hand it off over to Hannah.
Thank you so much, Tasha. Amazing. So if anyone has questions, please feel free to ask them. You can put them message them in the chat, or you can ask them. And if there aren't any questions, we'll go on to Denali and hear a little bit about New Mexico.
Hey, everyone. As I mentioned, my name's Denali. I'm the New Mexico Director of Strategic Support for the Healing Advocacy Fund. I also have a couple of slides, so I will get those queued up. Cool. Does that look like a PowerPoint now?
Great. Yeah.
Great. So this is going to be a pretty quick overview. We don't have as many details on the program yet, and I'd like to share specifically the information that's relevant to those who may be interested in practicing in New Mexico or from New Mexico, on how to be engaged in the process of building our program. So I'm going to start with a pretty broad bird's eye view of where we've been, where we're going. I'm going to skip over some of the legislative history. Just know that a lot of things had to happen and to be in place for New Mexico to momentously and historically pass, as they did in the spring of this year, the New Mexico Psilocybin Act. So all those things happened. The law was signed and became law this summer. Just this month, the Department of Health began the process for selecting and appointing the advisory board, which is a 9-member board that will assist the department in creating the rules and regulations that will become the entire foundation of the program. So it's expected that the board will be appointed and seated and ready to roll in September of this year. And a little before that, the department is going to launch what is will be the program for the end of this year, statewide listening sessions and town halls, where the department is hoping to seek community input on what it is that New Mexicans want this program to look like. That those hearings or town halls will be both virtual and in person. And then during that same period, once the board is seated, they have to set up how they will look, including, the formation of any subcommittees. And that will put the department and the state in a great position to start what is the formal rulemaking process at the beginning of next year. And the rules and regulations and everything need to be in place for the program. There's a statutory deadline, the very end of 2027. So that's the period of time that the department will be looking at. Right smack in the middle of that, New Mexico is going to have a governor's election, which could do nothing. It could do a lot, but it will definitely do something. And so, or some continuum of that. And so just a thing to have in our timeline as we're looking at what this will look like. But we do know that that during the rulemaking process, as was true in Oregon and Colorado, there is a period of public comment and input that will be really important for engaging how the program is shaped and what model it takes. And then we do also know from the department that they expect to have the permitting and registration process that would open to both cultivators and facilitator providers in March of 2027. So that's where we're looking to go. So there are just so many outstanding open regulatory questions that are going to impact prospective facilitators and patients alike here in New Mexico. I'll just highlight a couple of them, but you can imagine it's kind of an endless list. A big piece, and just to contrast some of what Tasia outlined about the Colorado program, one thing that is really distinct both from Colorado and Oregon is that New Mexico is exclusively a medically integrated model. The advocates that shaped the legislation chose that route with the ultimate goal of making sure that services are insurable. We as a state are lucky to have a fairly creative and flexible state Medicaid office. And so that is a big hope in terms of achieving accessibility and affordability for our community, is the insurability of these services. But that is on the horizon. One of the ways in which that is baked into the structure of the program, though, is that it's a medically integrated model. So that means that you have to be a licensed healthcare provider in order to authorize or in order to facilitate psilocybin therapy. But the big question is, right, what licenses will that be? And also, will that differ depending on the stage of therapy, right? From screening to administration to facilitation, supervision, and integration, right? What licensed professionals will be engaged in each stage? Big question also relevant to those who are here today is, questions of training and continuing education. Big question will be, whether SoundMind's curriculum and other curricula will be approved and comply with the Department of Health's requirements. Of course, we hope and expect that to be the case, but these are some of the many questions that are to be determined over the next 2 years in our state. So that gets me to the big part of my presentation, which is opportunities and invitations for engagement. So if you are someone who is living in New Mexico and hopes to become engaged as a prospective facilitator, as I mentioned in the town hall, the Department of Health is working with the advisory boards to have these statewide, or as I mentioned in the timeline, these town halls will be underway in the fall. And so if you are interested in participating and helping to shape the program, that is a great opportunity to raise facilitators or prospective facilitators specific concerns or issues. The advisory board will form subcommittees. I know there's a lot of interest and hope for a facilitator or provider specific subcommittee that can help really dig into some of these provider specific considerations throughout the program, and certainly advocating for that kind of subcommittee, seeking appointment or otherwise engaging in the subcommittee is a great way to be involved. And whether or not there is a subcommittee, we will have rules and they will impact the program, and there will be opportunities to engage. So whether it's development of model rules around care models and licensure, dual licensure, all of the many issues that impact facilitators and will impact facilitators here in New Mexico, or engagement through the public comment period and rulemaking, there are just so many opportunities to be engaged in shaping what we hope is an incredibly successful program for the state and reaches the people who are most in need. And so if you'd like to stay engaged, as Tasia mentioned, we have a newsletter that publishes monthly updates. And so the Department of Health also will have updates on their website, and you can just search the Department of Health psilocybin program. There's a specific New Mexico Department of Health. It'll come up with the specific page for the Department of Health. There will be updates there, but on a regular cadence, we also will have monthly newsletter updates that have updates from all the programs, including New Mexico. And so if you want to stay engaged, you can snap a cute little picture of that dinosaur and join the newsletter to stay engaged on what's happening here in New Mexico. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Very exciting. Super cool. Snuck up on us, just like New Mexico. We're doing it. Great. If anyone has any questions, please let us know in the chat. Grace, do you have a question? Go ahead.
My question is really around sort of thinking towards the future. And probably Denali and Tasia, do you anticipate that if and when the FDA approve MDMA for therapeutic use, that the models that you have created will sort of map over into MDMA, or do you anticipate a different model of care provision altogether?
I can speak to that a little bit. I think that they will map over to an extent. Definitely federal authorization through the FDA is a very different route than state regulated, because state regulated is still federally illegal. So I think they will map in the sense that a lot of the competencies and the standards of care surrounding consent, preparation, integration, will still have contributed to having this group of trained and licensed people that have really deepened their skill set around that. Of course, working with MDMA therapy is not necessarily the same as psilocybin, particularly like the psilocybin program is very focused on a non-directive approach, which may not be the case with MDMA. And we also don't know how they're going to regulate it or what they're going to require around that. I will say that the way we set up Colorado's program is intended to allow the two to be integrated within the same location. And so, like, for instance, if somebody is approved to work with psilocybin and then MDMA happens, they can have that at the same site. They like same physical location. And so, you know, there's one of the healing centers in Colorado has been a clinical research site for years now, and they also offer ketamine assisted therapy. So all of that's happening. They do need to work with lawyers to make sure that they're prepared for instance, like an inspection of their site, that there is some sort of separation of the federally illegal psilocybin mushrooms from the federally legal prescribed substances. But there are ways to do that, or else that site just would not be operational because they do have ketamine there. So I think that there's ways to integrate it. It's not clear that the license to facilitate with psilocybin will automatically qualify somebody to work with MDMA. If it goes similarly to ketamine, it's actually like potentially way less regulated in a lot of ways than these state regulated models. That was a long answer, but
Yeah, totally. And it's also complicated because MAPS and the MDMA training is changing a bit. So because MDMA was not federally approved, they are sort of switching their angle a little bit. So what I think is going to happen is there will be less training required probably for MDMA because they're kind of framing it more as the medication, not with the therapy for FDA reasons. And that there actually will be more need to have supplemental training outside of whatever they require. I think it will be, and MAPS people are talking about that too, that there's going to be like a need. So it will probably be like this skill set is very useful to do that, and to do that, you either probably have to be a clinical person or have some other training to allow you to be either primary therapist or co-therapist. But yeah, complicated question that no one will really answer until it gets approved, or no one will really have the answer to. But yeah, we like to say, as you all know, and there are a lot of alumni here, just that I like to think of becoming a facilitator is really a lifestyle. It's like a life plan. It's not really a certificate. It's like a goal of how you're going to live your life, how you're going to hold space for others, and it is all applicable for everything, you know, no matter what they come up with for paperwork requirements once you've started down that road. So you graduate, Grace, but it's forever. You're a relieved graduate. Okay, so I'm thinking what we're going to do. Any other questions around state level initiatives? So I think it's for anyone who doesn't know, I'll talk a little bit about this in my presentation, but just there's in the US right now, there's federal level and there's state level. And so we're talking about states because states individually are approving. So Oregon, now Colorado, and then coming up New Mexico's will happen. But at the same time, there's all these other molecules and psychedelics getting approved through the FDA system. So there's psilocybin, which is most of what's being studied is synthetic forms of psilocybin. And then there's 5-MeO DMT that is reaching the last few years of trials, probably for the alcohol use disorder and depression. And there's other like molecules that seem like they're totally weird. I've never heard of them, but they're all kind of in the same, there's a few categories. So in SoundMind, we also talk about what the categories are. For me, there's the ketamine category I put on its own. There's the tryptamines, and then there's like the phenethylamines, which would be MDMA, Wachuma, San Pedro, peyote. And then these middle ones that are tryptamines include psilocybin, ayahuasca, 5-MeO. There's a lot of different molecules that pharmaceutical companies can study that are different than the plants, but they fit into the same categories in some way. So we will probably be seeing more and more of the sort of synthetic molecules that replicate in some way what the plants are doing. We love plants at SoundMind, but you know, there's other things happening too. Awesome. Any other questions in the chat, or anyone want to pop on and ask a question? I'll give a few, maybe a minute to last chance, and then we'll go into a meditation. and then we'll hear from Jake and Patrick, and then I'll talk about SoundMind a bit. If you need to use the bathroom, I think maybe we could do a bathroom break after the meditation if anyone needs one. And the meditation will just be about 5 minutes just to get grounded, because we do that in every SoundMind class, and it makes sense to do it here because we all need grounding by Diana, none other than Diana. And I can continue to answer any questions. I'm here to answer any questions about states, federal, and anything else that comes up around psychedelics. You got me here. So whatever you want to ask. Like, what's my favorite color? I don't really know right now. Red, maybe. Maybe green. I don't know. Okay, so I'm going to hand it over to Diana.
Thank you. So let's just take a moment to feel our bodies in whatever posture we are in this moment. And maybe let's begin by shaking a little bit. And you can choose to shake slowly or shake a lot. I'm shaking just a little bit today. This is what I need today. Shake however you need. And remember to breathe as you shake. Inhaling through your nose and exhaling through your mouth. And slowly, naturally come to a pause in your shaking. And find your stillness. And in this space of stillness and silence, allow yourself to slow down. And slowing down also means taking your time. So take your time. Take your time to enjoy your breath in this moment. Enjoying the inhale and also enjoy the releasing, the exhale. Taking your time to be with your experience in this moment. And as we rest in the present moment, let's remember that it is in the present moment that we find the answers. So just rest in that knowing. It is right here, right now. Let's inhale deeply together once again, inhaling through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Let's do that again. One last time, let's inhale. And exhale. And slowly, let's open our eyes and come back to the room.
Thank you, Diana. All right, so we'll do a like a 3 to 4 minute bathroom break. If anyone needs to use the bathroom, grab a water, grab a snack. See you in a second. Sound good? Hello. Welcome to the podcast. All right, so we're going to talk just a little bit about what people are doing as facilitators. I think it's important in the context of just our training program that people are doing a lot of different things, and it's hard to represent, like when we're thinking who can talk about what they're doing, it's like everything. So keeping in mind, Jake and Patrick are amazing examples of what they're doing, but there's a lot of other amazing examples of other things. So if you're not located in Colorado, Oregon, or New Mexico, ketamine-assisted psychotherapy is legal everywhere in the US, many other countries in the world too. Ketamine is on the list of World Health Organization essential medications, and so it's one great thing about it is it's not very expensive, the actual medication itself, and available in a lot of places in the world that have a lot of trauma. To sit for someone in a ketamine clinic, you don't have to be licensed, but you have to have someone that will hire someone that is not licensed if you are not licensed. We have had people working ketamine clinics as facilitators that are unlicensed, hired by medical facilities. A lot of the ketamine clinics that happen in the US are infusion-based, kind of not space held necessarily, and more the medication. And so there is a big appreciation when people can help sit, because even if someone is, say, getting ketamine for pain, they are still going on a journey. And so stuff comes up, and it's great if there are skilled facilitators to sit with them. Psilocybin is legal in these states, and Colorado also has a personal use side, so not just psilocybin, but other psychedelics are on the personal use side that are much more legal than psychedelics in other states on sort of a more personal use level. And that's awesome. Internationally, there's also a lot of opportunities. Psilocybin is legal in Jamaica. Wachuma San Pedro cactus is legal in several different countries, including Peru. And we also have people working in psychedelic churches in the US. And what else? Oh, and integration coaching. So you can, after the program, you can also do integration with people. And even if you're not a therapist, you can bill as an integration coach, which is awesome. And if you're a therapist, you can do integration therapy with people. and preparation therapy. So preparation is really important. So you can also help prepare someone before they go into a journey, even if you're not the one sitting for them in the journey. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Jake and Patrick to talk a little bit about what they're doing, and also maybe ways in which you found the SoundMind training program unique, why you may recommend it to other people, and what you think makes a good fit for the program. And then if people have questions, please ask. I might also ask you questions too, because as we said before, this is recorded and will be sent out to a lot of people who signed up for either live or recorded version of this talk. So welcome, and remind us also where you are, what you do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great, Hannah, thank you. And I might reverse it and talk about the SoundMind stuff first, and then we'll hop into what we're doing with it. But just a reminder, my name is Jake McWink, and my experience with the SoundMind program honestly was, if I can be totally truthful and transparent, I think that it was one of the most important educations that I've received. And I say that because SoundMind did such an amazing job of not simply saying, this is how you do it. Instead, it was really a wonderful opportunity to see all of the different doors that are included for continued exploration and continued learning. And so they did a really wonderful job of welcoming me and kind of my interest and curiosity in this, bringing me into the psychedelic realm and showing me all of the different facets that exist within that space for me to then feel equipped and well prepared for then the continued pursuit. And so I think that that was one of the most important components of this program. I also chose and wanted to join SoundMind because it appeared to be the most robust out of all of the ones that I was looking at. And then the third component was that it also was one of the only programs that allowed in non-clinicians. And I don't come from the clinical world, but I have just as much to bring to this space as individuals from there as well. There are just so many different ways to approach it. And so SoundMind for me was essentially that welcome home base to go and build an unbelievably strong foundation, which I think really aligns to the way that I view psychedelics, of the importance of going slow, building deep, and going far.
Yeah, and my name is Patrick McWink, Jake's husband. And I mean, one, just want to thank you all for being here, and also for the setup that we had before, because without like work from Tasia, who helped set all this up, and the foundation that Dr. Hannah's given throughout this whole experience, we wouldn't be here, and we wouldn't have been the beneficiaries of all of the work that has been done, and take advantage of where we are in Colorado now. And so when it comes to the SoundMind program, I mean, Jake spoke really well on the major pieces that kind of like hit. It was such a wonderful array of opportunity to just get like a preview of different things that work in conjunction with psychedelics. So whether that's somatic therapy or meditation, breath work, or psychotherapy, we kind of got like just like a little entryway to each path, and then from there got to choose like our own adventure. And it wasn't like so much directions other than the directions of the Oregon-based model that we were learning, but it was more along the lines of an education in the space. And so when we we're looking at programs to move into, and Jake was really the spearhead of moving us into this space. We looked and tried to find which program was going to be most beneficial for us to expand like our already curated knowledge in the space and then our own passions. So like for me, body work and breath work and yoga and meditation were something that really called to me, and it really reactivated my calling in that space as well. So like during the SoundMind program, I got my 200-hour yoga cert, and then like from that now then I've been able to help create different spaces of just allowance of feeling. And that is remarkable to witness how many people are in that same boat of, well, I was told I wasn't supposed to feel when I was younger, and then being a conduit for them to be able to access these states of emotions that they have since suppressed. So really, really wonderful basis of attaching science and then body, and then along with that, one thing that I'll add to this is the spirit, and to be able to work with different indigenous communities and learn from ancestral wisdom, to be able to have that invitation to spirit and invitation to prayer and reconnection to like my own faith has been one of the more profound things that I've received from the SoundMind program. So that's been really nice. And then since graduating, Jake and I mean, over the past 2-3 years, we've really put together a bunch of different ideas of what it is that we want to offer from our own learnings and offer to our community. And like it's this wonderful practice of patience. One, because we're working within the confines of legislation, and that's something that we've recognized that we are trying to stay as above ground as possible, and that's gotten so much easier due to the work that Tasia has been doing, and Josh Capel, who I'm assuming that many of the people that are on this call have heard from. We've been able to work in the personal use harm reduction side of things. And what we've recognized in the communities that we're in is that there's a general curiosity around psychedelics, and there's a lot of experimentation under that personal use side of things. And what we're trying to do in our community is create a scaffolding or an education of autonomy, but also this vernacular of understanding what psychedelics are, what can come up during, how we can move through emotions, how we can honor emotions, and then really witness that like there may not be such a thing as a bad trip, but really what we're seeing is more of lack of guidance or education or understanding of someone's own internal emotional structure. And so that's where we've been kind of moving through, and we started a company called El Ringo, and are working through harm reduction services and education, and have started with a 6-week microdosing education course. And it's really funny because like we say it's a microdosing education course, but really it's just an education on creating intention and sitting with emotion and understanding the legal framework in Colorado and the emotional framework of your own being, and then how we can utilize psychedelics for the creativity and flow that come from creating space within ourselves and within our lives. And microdosing, and Dr. Hannah might be able to speak a little bit more on this, of using microdosing potentially in the assistance of a macrodose session. So whether that's in preparation to create that relationship with the mushroom, or the integration to really find those areas where you might need some remembering, and whether that's listening to the playlist again on a microdosing protocol, or reading your journal again through that as well. So that's something that we're trying to do, of really just be a resource for people in Colorado and abroad to have this connection of vernacular and education to create a structure in order for them to feel a little bit more comfortable within their body to be able to do this on their own. And then beyond that, I mean, one of the reasons we got into this space is because Jake had a stroke back in 2018. You can talk a little bit more about that experience. That was real fun. 8 months into dating.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
crazy. Yeah, talk about it.
Yeah, so we sorry, we had kind of
There were slides.
put a few slides together. So Auringo is the kind of microdosing education organization that we've put together to help guide individuals through microdosing protocols. And so it's just a 6-week kind of education cohort. But in addition, and kind of in the spirit of reciprocity, which is something deeply that we learned from the SoundMind program, was that in one regard, in order to enter the space, it's very important to also give back in the ways that are aligned with your own story, with your own purpose. And really, SoundMind did such a great job of imbuing that the story that you have and aligning with your own integrity is going to serve you one of the best ways in working in this space. And so Auringo is a great way for us to build that scaffolding to help welcome individuals into the psychedelic landscape as a foundation for deeper work. But the Psychedelic Stroke Institute is a nonprofit that we formed in the state of Colorado. And this is a way to give back in the ways that we can. So what I mean by that is, obviously, I had a stroke back in 2019. And interestingly enough, by the time I was able to get back to the United States, there weren't necessarily a whole lot of options available to me in terms of my recovery. And so I ended up essentially doing a little pharmacology experiment and leveraging both LSD and psilocybin to aid in my recovery. And it's important for me to disclose, I cannot say that the reason that I'm back to 100% is exclusively because of these compounds. However, I did notice a direct correlation, I would call them miracle weeks, which would be associated to my use of these compounds. And so I thought that it would be important for me to help and see if this was something available to others. So the Psychedelic Stroke Institute is really designed to help work with individuals recovering from stroke, if it's appropriate to them, if they are curious about this, to help guide them into this space so that they're able to leverage these compounds as safely, productively, and appropriately as possible. And so we're just gathering data, observational data. It's nothing formal, but simply trying to extract information to potentially demonstrate, is this or is this not helping this community? And if so, would we be able to help support the medical community in terms of absorbing this for their potential use so that more and more individuals recovering from stroke could potentially benefit? So I know that that was very kind of quick and high level. But yeah, those are just kind of a few things that we're trying to do with the education that we received from the SoundMind Institute.
Yeah, and also important that we make sure that we do disclose that, like, we are not doctors, we are not lawyers, and like it is not medical advice, it is not legal advice that we're working with, and always work with your doctors and providers if you're going to change medication, because that is not something we ever advise. But it is something that, like, if you're going to be doing this, here are some things that we've used in the past.
Thank you. Can you list a few things that you think make a successful SoundMind student? What do you think are qualities that lead to a good year?
Oh, well, the biggest one, and that's like, it's like the most successful in any psychedelic experience, is curiosity. Like curiosity of like, okay, well, why am I annoyed by whatever we're talking about right now? Or why am I like, why is this like piquing my interest so much? And then follow-up questions as well. And not being shy to say, I have no idea what you're talking about. Which happened very often, and I was very grateful because like I had a study buddy, but like and then we had like our own accountability groups and other friends in the cohort that we created, but yeah, curiosity was my ally for sure.
I would say it is definitely something where you get what you give. And so the more that you invest in a program like this, the more that you'll get back out of it. Certainly you can kind of just coast through, and that's great. But this is really an opportunity to kind of dive in. The second thing would be that it's really important to embrace yes, and saying yes to opportunities, to connecting with individuals, because it's so important to develop that kind of mycelial network within this kind of space as possible. And then the third thing that I would say is a successful SoundMind student, I think, would also be one who embraces entrepreneurship. This is a space that I think requires that level of kind of thinking, grit, and resilience, and that this is not necessarily a space where things will be handed to you. And so I think that really aligning to that entrepreneurial spirit that exists within so many of us will really help amplify the skills and education that SoundMind Institute helps kind of give you that foundation to build and launch from.
Yeah. And then also, I mean, I don't even think we've mentioned that we received our license. We are licensed facilitators in training, as they call them, because we still need to get our hours of consultation work before a full license. But yeah, we can work at a healing center, which right now for us, and this is just the path that we're taking, we're waiting to kind of like connect with established healing centers and see which one really works with us. We don't currently have a desire to open our own healing center. That might be like in the long-term visions, but that isn't really a calling to us. But right now we're continuing to watch the landscape unfold, and again, so grateful because we utilize all of those resources that Tasia pointed out. And Hannah, you've been such a wonderful connector in terms of making sure that we're on that path of still moving forward with things. So that's been really helpful as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting journey. It's like when a state legalizes and like, this is what you guys need. No, we're going to give you this. Okay, now you're good. Okay, there's this other thing, it's like, we did it. It's real.
Here we are.
Yeah. Anyone else who took the program want to share any thoughts? I'd love to open it up if there is anyone else who wants to share thoughts about what makes a successful year. How do you know it's a good fit? And if not, I have slides. You can always do that. Grace, go ahead.
I think what I would say is it's not easy, but it's worth it. What SoundMind brings is a bridge between ceremonial and clinical knowledge and experience, and it does it in a delightfully safe and open container. And for that, I'm truly grateful, being at the sort of at the arse end of the world trying to figure this stuff out. And I think the key people at SoundMind have so much credibility and so much invested in you doing well in the course. And I think that's not just an academic process, it's a personal expansion process. And I think, the work and the practical environment sets you up for that in a safe and supported way, which is huge. And I think, this is a pioneering environment. And I think of, some of the pioneers in New Zealand that we are familiar with, like Shackleton and, a few other sort of tenacious, grit, resilient kind of people out there that just keep going. And I think, the thing I learned about the study is, for Christ's sake, don't get behind, because that just makes it a lot harder. and the thing with that is when you go into class, there's richness in the conversation when you are prepared and you know the content and you can kind of get a deeper understanding of the material. And yeah, I think you need to push through your own boundaries and like Patrick was saying, you know, remain curious and just stay open. But yeah, it's a great life experience, and it starts you on a very, very different journey. I mean, I come from a nursing, counselling and corporate background, and I'm used to solving problems and finding a way. But I think the biggest difference for me is that I'm now doing it with heart, and I'm now doing it with a tribe. And I feel immensely supported by the people that I've connected with through SoundMind, even though we're not in contact often. I know they're in the trenches there doing their thing. And that I can pick up the phone anytime and have, you know, a really productive conversation. So I think that's hugely worth it.
Awesome. Thank you, Grace. Doing it. Everyone's doing it. Any questions for anyone or any other thoughts?
Yeah, I would say that like programs like this, I mean, when we were looking, I mean, there were programs that we could do that were a few weeks long, or like a intense like a week intense program that then we can check the box on that education and then find the experiential component and be able to like have those requirements for the state to be able to move forward with things. But I mean, I think it all just depends on like what are the goals that you have? Like, is the goal to like just receive a license, or is it to like receive an education and like a profound bird's eye view of the landscape nationwide? Because I think that was one of the other things is when we were looking at this, like the 6 or 7 programs that Oregon had approved at the time that when we were looking in 2022, we were like, okay, which one do we think will also then be recognized by the state of Colorado? And then beyond that, which one do we think that we're going to get like the most education, but like exposure to in terms of hearing from different educators, hearing from different modality teachers, because that I think was so big, because we were like, yeah, we have an idea of what we think we want our programs to look like, or what it is we want to do with the education. But like for me, like I was frankly doing it out of curiosity of like why is he doing it, and then like making sure that I was able to speak about it, and then to be able to not only speak about it but then contribute my own perspectives of the conversation has been like such a gift. And I don't think we would have received that if we went with one of the programs that were just a little bit less robust, if you will. And then beyond that, I think like programs like this and like education like this, it makes you like a better friend and like better contributor to society, because you're receiving different pieces of education and you're sitting in a grounding session every class. So like you hear from Diana and you can like sit and remind yourself of presence and then pass that forward and like bring that into your own communities. Like for instance, I just created a hour-and-a-half long program for the real estate side of my life, for sitting in presence and sitting with intention and creating intention, because like we're going through like a bigger shift in our agency. And so like you can bring this into really any area of your life. I mean, the day will come where I tell my family and I'm going to be guiding them through a meditation and they're going to have to sit still.
Totally true. Yeah, amazing. I love that. I love applying it to real estate. It's true. Love it. Cool. So I'm just going to run through some slides, and then I would love if you all stayed on and we can get questions answered at the end if anyone has them. But I'll go through pretty quickly. And partly this is because there are many people that are receiving the recording, so I want to make sure we do the thing that we said we would do, which is include some of the info about the actual program itself. So here we are in a retreat in Malala, Oregon. It was a ketamine assisted therapy retreat to count for the Oregon license because it was pre-service center. Nothing existed yet. So there was this period of time that we had a chicken and egg conundrum that how do you train someone if nothing's legal? So this was the beginning of that. And we had already been training for a couple years before that. So even before state level existed, we were training people to become facilitators. My background, I went to a lot of, I have a lot of degrees, and I would say for me, the degrees that most contribute to the development of this training program are the psychoanalytic training program I did at the end of my training. And the Harvard School of Public Health MPH was incredible, and a lot of what I learned there is in the ethics curriculum, the informed consent for touch modules, looking at psychedelics from a public health perspective is actually really important. It's like, how are we in such a mental health crisis in the world? And how do we think of populations and how we can heal them? I do think psychedelics are one of the best ways of getting at unconscious memories, traumas, things that need to be processed somatically. And I think that they will make enormous difference in the world as we roll them out. I studied neurology and occupational and environmental medicine at Penn. My medical degree was at Brown. I'm also a speech pathologist, which I do actually use a lot. I love language and linguistics. SoundMind's mission. So we aim to bring ethics, equity, and innovation to the psychedelic ecosystem. That is always a shifting target. It's like, who most needs this? Do we need to train? We do have currently 30% scholarships to the training program if you are in financial need. So please let us know. And we prioritize BIPOC, neurodiverse, and disabled humans, veterans, really wanting to support women leaders as well. Founders and CEOs who are women. So please let us know if finances are a barrier, because we want to hear from you. We have a medical clinic in Philadelphia. We do ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, integration, sound healing, lots of different things. And that has been in existence since 2019. So the other thing you get is in the training program, you get videos of actual patient sessions in psilocybin, in ketamine, and how we work with the preparation and the sessions and the integration. And having that kind of footage is pretty rare, and I think really drives home what you're learning. I'm very proud that we have that as so we can give examples. It's not just general, but it's like, this specifically, this is what we did. You can watch it, and it's like, well, that happened, and then we dealt with it this way. Yeah. Lots of, we were the first ketamine-assisted psychotherapy clinic on the whole Eastern Seaboard. So we got a lot of press. It was like in every news outlet possible. And have like 2,200 people on a wait list. So I've had people fly over from Singapore to see me with ketamine-assisted psychotherapy in Philly. So there's a lot of demand, and there's a lot of need. And I think with especially the current administration and what's going on, people are going to need even more support with their mental health. So there's not a lack of need. And I think a lot of it is just patience as things fit together and different things become legal in different states, and figuring out ways that you can get to the people that you want to serve, and support them. We are licensed in Colorado as a training program, as you have already learned. So we teach you innovative protocols. I really nerd out on protocols, and I really like when we were doing the informed consent for touch concept, it was like none of that existed. And really just even, I published the first piece on just like what is informed consent with psychedelics in BMJ and medical ethics, and like what does it mean to make a decision for your future self, and who is the future, who is the you in psychedelics, and who is the you outside of psychedelics, and how are you thinking about what you may need and what someone else may need. Individualized treatment plans. We teach both the medical model and the ceremonial model. And the medical model is important because people might come into you and have diagnoses that you don't really know what it means. So it's important to know if someone is carrying a diagnosis with them, at least you know where that came from, what questionnaires they probably filled out to get there. That we were also the first ones that really started integrating diagnostic training into our program that included unlicensed facilitators. We were the first program to offer training to unlicensed facilitators in the country, and I think the world. And so when I proposed that, some folks in the ecosystem were like, "What are you doing? How are you going to do that?" And I'm like, "We're going to teach the whole thing. It's going to be like a master's program, and it's going to include everything that's needed to sit for someone, including psychodynamic principles, non-directive techniques, ceremonial facilitation, medical model, gratitude, meditation, and then put all these people together that have completely different backgrounds, and everyone's going to learn a lot." And it worked. So we're still doing it. But when I started, it sounded like a gigantic task that seemed impossible. And I think that people with completely different backgrounds sitting next to each other in class virtually, and then sharing what they learned is really what makes it so dynamic and exciting. And it's why it made it so exciting as a teacher. I was like, oh, there's these, like, I learned when I started in 2019 that there was a whole contingent of Black men in West Philly growing mushrooms in their basement and sitting for each other, like holding space. And there was a whole network, and then some of them did take our class, and then we had some triple board certified psychiatrists in the same class being like, "I've been in school my whole life. What's happening in your basement?" And I was like, it's so fascinating. We do everything we teach is for above ground use, but we are very appreciative of all the work that has gone into understanding psychedelics from people that have taken a risk to provide this care in ways that there hasn't always been legal pathways. So just really grateful for all of the teachers I've had and all of the teachers I've had in the class as students that we have learned from. I think me being in every class and really paying attention to the trajectory and the pedagogy of this learning experience is also a really big thing that makes us different. I do like stay up at night thinking about like where where different modules should go, and it's like, oh, that one didn't land as well as I wanted it to. I'm going to move it to the end and see if that makes sense. And oh, countertransference is actually more complicated than I thought. So we're going to start with countertransference in the psychodynamic module and then bring it back up later in week 23. So it's like figuring out how do people really get these concepts over time. I love that. I will always love that. I didn't realize how much I love teaching until I started this class. And I was just everyone's doctor. And then suddenly I was like their teacher. And I was like, oh, this is so cool to be a teacher. So it's like 13 to 14 months. Some of it, the 3 or 4 months are asynchronous, so you can take them at any time. And then September to May is we have 2 hours on Tuesday and then 1 hour on Thursday that is required in person. You can miss some. It's a total of 250 hours, but that includes like the reading you do for homework and other things like that. They did use our curriculum to try to get Oregon approved back in the day because we were the only ones who had a 1-year training program like this. And so it really has, this training program itself has been the foundation of state level programs getting legalized, which is amazing. Super grateful for that opportunity. And we're always just iterating on as things come up, as we learn how people learn, things shift. We have an amazing set of guest lecturers as well as core faculty. We have people, certain people come on many times and some people come on once. And we have Michael Mithofer and Rick Doblin from MAPS, Claudia Cuentas and Sire from Cora Center that we heard from in the first week of the summer series, Chris Stoffer, who's an MD and does psilocybin research with veterans. Kwasi comes on many times and talks about lots of different things, BIPOC inclusion, addressing suicidal ideation in patients. Kwasi can talk about anything, and it's just like stories, and it's like amazing. Adele France is also a core teacher that comes on it many times, and she talks about many different topics, including internal family systems and parts work and working with families. And Dan Wickler is the director of ethics at the Harvard School of Public Health. He is a very well-known ethicist, is like very philosophical and someone I respect enormously. And I have dragged him into psychedelics, and he comes and teaches in the class. But there's not a ton of like ethics philosophy people that are in the psychedelic space, and he's one of them, who will weigh in on everything we're doing, which is awesome. We have this psychodynamic curriculum, which is going on right now. If you start now, you can probably finish it before the September cohort starts. But if you don't, if you enroll in September, you can just start the live classes, and then you can finish the psychodynamic curriculum whenever. You do have a few months after the class is over to finish it. And you learn all about non-directive techniques. This was added to the curriculum based on demand. People asked me if I could make non-directive techniques part of the course, and so we added that a couple years in. I love that part. And then the core curriculum starts in September. We do tell people it's about 5 to 10 hours a week, including the classes, that you can expect to be doing reading and homework and other class-related stuff. So the core curriculum, September to May, is 7 to 9 Eastern, 4 to 6 PST. And we have small groups, accountability groups that are happening 7 to 8 Eastern on Thursdays. And then we have a makeup class on Saturday. If you miss it, you can miss up to 5 classes. And we help you if something happens in your life and for some reason you can't attend and you miss more than you thought you would, we help you make that up. We have practicums. We collaborate with many different organizations, including Intertrek, Chorus Center, and some ketamine trainings through Polaris. We also do ketamine trainings on our own in Philadelphia, and do San Pedro, Huachuma retreats in Peru. Some of these are more just experiential. Others count for practicum based on what state you're in. You can talk to us about what your options are. If you're trying to get Colorado, you will need to be either in Oregon or Colorado doing your practicum. Lots of date options. You don't have to decide right away. You have 2 years after you graduate to complete the practicum. Here are some pictures of international retreats we've done. That was a few years ago in Costa Rica. Here's one we did in Bend, Oregon. Psilocybin retreat with Bendable. Ryan Reed is a graduate. He's amazing. And then we also have consultation groups starting in maybe, I think it's early October at this point. And it's 8 to 10 people. And this is after you've taken a training program. But if you've taken one already, even if it's not SoundMind, you can join these supervision groups. And these are, you bring cases or questions to us, and we go over real life examples. And this is a component that is also required by Colorado. And if you're not in Colorado, you should still do a consultation group somewhere, because it's a very important part of learning. All psychotherapy trainings have something like this. Our tuition is $12,300. Summer discount is makes it $11,300. If you really need a scholarship and that doesn't work for you, those numbers, please let us know. And we also have payment plans. Up to 12 months. I think that's all I'm going to share. Any questions for any of us here? Diana, what do you have to say? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I have some thoughts. I just want to highlight the passion for, you mentioned the word pedagogy. How do you say that? Yeah, passion for the learning process, the passion for right, exploring how we learn. I just want to say that in SoundMind, we keep that in the center. We are passionate about the learning process. We are passionate about how healing happens, right? So there is a constant refinement of the program itself. And in this sense, I think the curriculum is very much alive because we're constantly trying to improve it. We're constantly exploring different ways in which we can do this better. So yeah, that's what I wanna add. The program is very much alive, and we are really invested in how to improve it constantly and how to make it meaningful for all of us.
Thank you. Yeah, we're total curriculum nerds. We do almost no marketing, which is fascinating. It's almost all word of mouth because what we want to be doing is like making the curriculum perfect. I don't care about Instagram. I never did. So so in the end, I think if you're curious if it might be for you, we're also offering people to start the psychodynamic curriculum the first 3 weeks. For if you get accepted to the program, you still have to apply, but you can take, if you get accepted and you're not quite sure, like, is this for me? What's it like? What would my life be like if I was taking this? It gives you a taste. So you can do 3 weeks for free, not even start any payment plans, just to get a sense and be like, do these people make sense to me? If we do, we really do. And if we don't, that's totally cool. It's like, it should be a good program for you. And it should feel aligned. It should feel good with what you're doing with your life right now. And we're happy to answer any questions if you have them about your specific circumstances, where you're located, what you want to do, because it is important that you find alignment, and it feels like the right time to do it. And we have the best training program, but that's just it's just a fact. um, any questions about New Mexico or Colorado for Denali or Tasia, from anyone here or anyone doesn't have a camera on? If not, I think we can probably close it. And if people have questions, you can email us. Admissions@soundmind.institute is the best way if you're not an alumni already. Yeah, any final words from Jake, you, or Patrick, Denali, Grace, anyone in the audience who wants to yell something out?
Thanks for letting us be part of this, and it continues to pay huge dividends moving forward. So incredibly grateful for this opportunity.
Thank you. Well, good to see you all. And thank you for coming and sharing, and hope to do it again soon. And thank you for everyone watching. And thank you for future people watching us in the past. We're real. We were real when we did this. Might not be anymore. Who knows? All right. Thank you.